All right, I am going to go ahead and get started. Good evening and welcome to the proceedings of the Grand Rapids Public Schools. Today is Monday, November 2nd. Thank you for joining us. And we are going to start with a roll call. Ms. Lewis?
Yes. Ms. Lewis is here. Reverend Matias?
Here.
Mr. Ross? Ms.
Here.
Shecky? Ms. Williams?
Here.
Dr. Baker?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Dr. Flores? President Grant?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And Mr. Ross will be joining us shortly as well. Next, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right. The first thing we have for this evening is celebrations, and we will start with the GO campaign.
All right. Good evening, board members. Happy November. Talking about the GO campaign, the district faced unprecedented challenges with the immediate and prolonged closures due to the pandemic. The district remained steadfast and focused on how to support our students and families through academics, daily meals, social and emotional supports. Given the budgetary constraints of GRPS that we faced under the last year, it was necessary to raise additional funds to launch distance learning while ensuring equitable access for all student households. We talked about building together the donor wall. The Building Together donor wall will recognize our many generous donors contributing to the Grand Rapids Public School Museum. I'd like to ask Craig, our moderator, to bring forward John Helmholt, and John will provide additional information related to the celebration. He'll be joined by Sally Andretta, who is the Executive Director of the Grand Rapids Public Schools Foundation, as well as Josh Spencer, the Vice President of Canary Consulting.
All right, thank you, Dr. Roby. President Grant, members of the board, it's our honor and privilege to be here tonight to share the successful conclusion of both the GO campaign from this last spring, as well as the donor wall, which is kind of the final recognition from the Building Together campaign from several years ago. And so I want to start first with our GO campaign. And Dr. Roby really teed this up. This last spring, when the governor announced her decision to shut schools down on March 12th, and when we knew shortly thereafter that we were going to be going 100% virtual for the remainder of the school year, we knew we had issues around access to technology, access to internet, literacy, as well as the need for the PPE equipment and all the health safety requirements. At that time, two good friends of the district, Fred Keller from Cascade Engineering and the Keller Foundation, as well as John Kennedy from AutoCam Medical and the John and Nancy Kennedy Foundation, reached out to us. And kind of one thing led to another. We worked with the GRPS Foundation. Sally Andretta and her staff have been remarkable. Josh Spencer from Canary Consulting. We pulled together a team. Bridget Cheney, who is our executive director over the academic foundations, pulled it together. And in just a short few weeks and months, we were able to raise nearly $500,000 toward this initiative. And as part of that, the success, we also knew that the spring campaign was just the start, that we didn't know what we didn't know at that time. So we also were encouraged by our donors to look at what is more of a long-term ask. And so we recently conducted a feasibility assessment with Canary and are looking at kind of a new campaign, Return to Learn campaign, that we are putting the final touches on a case for support. But tonight's celebration is to really thank those donors, particularly John and Nancy Kennedy and Fred Keller, who stepped up from the beginning, but all the donors. And so I'd like to take a time, turn this over to Sally Andretta from the GRPS Foundation, where she can go through those list of donors.
Thank you, John. Thank you, President Grant and board members, Dr. Roby. That was a great campaign, and it was wonderful that we were all able to work together to get this done quickly. And I really do want to just take a short minute to thank those people that were so instrumental in helping us raise those funds. So again, as John said, John and Nancy Kennedy and Fred Keller were such a great help to our whole team in helping us kick this off and keep the momentum rolling for this. Also, the CDB5 Foundation, Dan and Pam DeVos Foundation, the Dick and Betsy DeVos Family Foundation, along with the Doug and Maria DeVos Foundation, the Jander Noah Foundation, the Peter C. and Emma Jean Cook Foundation, Lake Michigan Credit Union, Steelcase Incorporated and the Steelcase Foundation, the O'Donovan Family Foundation, Advanced Packaging, State Farm Insurance, the Michigan College Access Network, GMB Architecture, the PNC Foundation, and Kent ISD. So thank you all of those groups and individuals that were able to help us to raise those funds. We very much appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Sally. I heard Josh's name mentioned. Josh, any follow-up that you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say it was a pleasure to come and help work with the district once again, and you know, during that kind of trying time to assist and kind of organizing this campaign. And it was quite amazing in such a short period of time how many funds we were able to raise and to support your distance learning efforts in the spring. So thank you for allowing us to work with you once again.
Thanks, Josh. Dr. Roby and President Grant, would you like us to move on to the Building Together donor wall recognition?
Yes, please do.
All right, great. This one's going to date us back a few years. You might recall, as part of the GRPS transformation plan, particularly for the phase 2 implementation, then Superintendent Weatherall Neal indicated that she would not ask the taxpayers of Grand Rapids for anything until we could prove success of phase 1. We were able to not only prove success of phase 1, but we were also able to look at the $175 million bond campaign and look to our friends in the philanthropic and corporate community to say, how can we do this in a public-private partnership? Can you come alongside so we're not asking the taxpayers to foot the full bill? And again, we worked with Canary, we worked with the GRPS Foundation, which was then the Grand Rapids Student Advancement Foundation. And as a result, we put together the Building Together capital campaign that I'm pleased to share raised nearly $12 million. And with the application of some bond money, we were able to fulfill the entire $14+ million campaign. And we were gearing up to do the donor wall recognition. You might recall the museum high school portion of this was built almost entirely using private funds. The XQ Super School grant was a substantial amount of that. It was a $10 million award, about 5.5 of which was used for construction. And so as we work on the finalization, this campaign was finalized, but we have a really nice looking donor wall that was being planned and ready to begin just before COVID hit. And so we are here today to announce that the donor wall has been finalized. We are in the process of completing construction. It will be housed in the museum high school in the Great Hall. And it has interchangeable artifact exhibits where we worked with the public museum and their exhibit design staff to design something where the students can help co-create objects that could be 3D printed using the 3D printers that were part of this campaign to actually print objects that mirror what may be in the museum collection and can be incorporated into the donor wall. Julie Anderson or Craig, I'm not sure if they have the ability to put that image of the donor wall up on the screen. And if not, we can certainly email it out.
It's in the packet.
It's in the packet. And while I'll let them see if we can find it, Sally, why don't you take a moment and just read through the donors that we are recognizing on the wall from the top level donors, and it would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that Ambassador Peter, the former ambassador and recently deceased Ambassador Peter Secchia and Joan Secchia gave our leading gift of $1.5 million to name that great hall in honor of our former superintendent. So I'm going to tee it off there, and then Sally, I'll let you cover the rest.
Thank you. Hang on one second. I was pulling that up. Can you hear me? So the Kate and Richard Walters Foundation, now called the KRW Foundation, the Meyer Foundation, as John said, Peter and Joan Secchia, the Wegge Foundation, and also the XQ Institute, the Fry Foundation, again, Peter C. and Emma Jean Cook Foundation, the Steelcase Foundation, the Steve and Amy Van Andel Foundation, the O'Donovan Family Foundation, and then Bill and India Manns, Bradford and Andola Mathis, Brendan and Liz Geary, Brian and Agnes Kemper Cloyd, Doug and Alex Thompson, Doug and Jill Wilderdink, the Dyer Ives Foundation, Gerard and Nancy Hickey, the Kinship Foundation, Jeff and Julie Towner, Canary Consulting, Madeline C. Lane, John and Mary Beth Wardrop, Marilyn Tisch, Marlon Fan and Ruth Postumus, Rockford Construction, Wally and Becky Knack, and Wendy and David Valb.
All right, and I see that Craig, thank you, Craig, for putting that. Many of you might remember there's kind of a display case looking area where the students can sit. It was kind of a blank slate. We left it open. So if you can kind of envision that kind of quasi enclosed areas, there's two of them on the in the Grand Hall. This is a model, kind of a mock-up of what it's going to look like, where you see the yellow, gray, and white. Those are the interchangeable open air exhibit displays where different exhibits can be put on display by the students and the museum staff. And then you'll see the different donors' names have been woven into it. The size, of course, the larger it is, the larger the donation. And this is being done on that wood that modeled after the wood work that's in the Museum High building. And I think that's all we have. I want to give another thanks to all the donors, foundations, GRPS Foundation, Bridget Cheney, everyone who played a role in this, Josh Spencer, Canary Consulting. In total, you can see between these two campaigns, we raised nearly 12, almost $13 million to support our students, teachers, and schools. And that's all.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, my screen switched when we took the presentation down, but thank you very much for that presentation and for all of that hard work. And of course, thank you to our donors. Next, we have our secretary's report, Mrs. Lewis.
I'll mute myself here. Board committee meeting schedule. Please check the district website and go to the notice of regular and special board meetings to obtain Zoom virtual meeting access information. If there will be any changes to doing in-person meetings, meetings are also noticed and posted outside the district office administration building following the Open Meetings Act. The Academic Achievement Committee will be meeting Wednesday, November 4th. The Legislative Committee is meeting on Monday, November the 9th. The Policy Committee meeting will be on Wednesday, November the 18th. And the Finance Committee will be meeting on Monday, November 23rd. Tomorrow, remind everybody that the polls open at 7 and close at 8, and so get out and vote.
Thank you. Next, we have our committee chair updates, and we will start with Academic Achievement Committee.
Yes, actually, there's quite some extensive notes, some important things that are in the minutes from the October meeting, which are in this packet. So, encourage you guys to look through. But quickly, we had our first report from the Instructional Council for the year. Amy Powney is now co-chairing with Dr. Malonge, and they are working to communicate more fully across the district the role of the Instructional Council, which we are, as a board, trying to rely quite a bit on in terms of our decision making. We had a report from Maida Gunnell on an analysis by the Center for Applied Linguistics to measure our bilingual and ELL programs. I wanted to try to summarize it, but it's pretty lengthy, and the notes that are in the minutes are pretty full, so I would encourage people to look them over. But one line that stands out is just that in terms of the recommendation, and also just our consistent goal is trying to create linguistic equity across the district in terms of learning, et cetera. And then we finally had an analysis of learning, and this was mostly based on participation rates. If you remember, this was before we were making our final decisions as to how to handle our opening, and this kind of data is also in the packet for today, and I think it's going to be presented later. But analysis of learning showed participation of students moving from 83% at the beginning of the year to 87%. These are almost 88%, and these are weekly data. Next, on Wednesday, we will be getting another update on distance learning. We will also be getting a report on how the SAT went last week, and how participation in the SAT went, and then also just celebrating and learning more about the community organizations that are supporting us to provide additional supports in our circumstances. And that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Dr. Baker. Next, Mrs. Williams, we have the Finance Committee update.
All righty, we had our meeting on September 28th, and we talked about, we received an overview, from Mr. Oberst with regards to the purchasing agenda, and let's see, my cursor's moving a little slow. There it is, 1 second. The purchasing agenda, and there were highlights with regards to technology and curriculum purchases. Additionally, we talked about new security systems going in over at Mulek and Stocking, card access for Ottawa Hills as well. We had several donations from Office Depot, Accelerate 360, as well as Fifth Third Bank. In addition to that, we were told that the summer tax revenue was in the bank as well. We are still tracking all the COVID dollars that are coming in, and when funds can be used by, and what the expectations are with regards to that. We talked about, let's see, any major highlights. Just really how some of those PPE funds were being used to for technology, more PPE cleaning equipment, curriculum enhancements, as well as the air ventilation system in some of the schools. We also realized that the monies that we were anticipating from the state were not going to be cut as drastically as we had initially anticipated. And so that is going well for our budget. But we are moving with caution with regards to the COVID dollars, just making sure that we are using them with the appropriate guidance and report outs. And there was also an easement between GRPS and the Spalding family at Kent Hill School. And that is all that I have.
Thank you. And Mrs. Shockey, I know that you had a question about the purchasing agenda. That was more of a broad question, but I thought that it was a good one. And the question was just general about what schools we have. Well, I can let you summarize it, Ms. Shockey, but I may be putting Mr. Oberst on the spot a little bit. I'm checking the attendees list, but I didn't know, the question was just about what schools do we have dual enrollment agreements with overall for our students. And I thought that it was a good one because our students are still taking dual enrollment classes right now, even during virtual learning. And I didn't know if we could answer that for everyone.
Yeah, I saw in the purchasing agenda that we're approving the dual enrollment agreement with Ferris. And so just a curiosity was how many of our area institutions do we partner with for dual enrollment? And Mr. Oberst did respond to me, in addition to Ferris, it's GRCC and Kendall. So it's good to know.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next on, were there any other questions for finance? Okay, next we have the return to learn plan update, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Roby.
Good evening once again. As a reminder that with the return to learn legislation requires each district to ask their board to reaffirm the return to learn plan monthly regarding instructional models and goals. And so this is just an overview and an update of what has taken place. As you all know, we are still in the we are still in the virtual learning place Monday through Friday, with Monday through Thursday having both asynchronous and synchronous learning, and Fridays primarily being asynchronous days. And this was the following information is based on stakeholder feedback. We've been working with our union to maximize more synchronous time during this 100% virtual period, and we'll have an update soon with respect to that. We've also been collaborating with the union to provide more small group synchronous times in the afternoon every day to support students who are exhibiting challenges. We continue to provide professional development on the COVID-19 cleaning procedures and distance learning best practices, providing teachers with opportunities to set up their classrooms to prepare for the hybrid model. Teachers have also had the opportunity to attend faculty meetings to receive updates from their principals. We continue as a district leadership team to meet with principals every Monday to ensure that we're all on the same page. And then also our administrative team meets with union representation every week as well. For the future, we are planning presentations at the building level that will take place through mid-November up through Thanksgiving. And we want to continue frequent communications with our families regarding the timelines for marking periods 2 and 3. And marking period 3 is the onset of semester 2. And that concludes the overview of what's taking place in the return to learn plan. The actual plan is in the document, the board document as well.
Thank you.
Dr. Rose,
So,
excuse me, Ms. Grant. Dr. Rose, what is the first day of the third marking period? You know,
that would be the second semester, which is January 4th, 2021. That is when we return from the winter break.
Okay, and so I know we agreed to go on with our virtual, but how will we agree or disagree about the hybrid after the 4th of January?
So good question. We are working through some of those things. We plan to do a work session next week where some of that information will be unpacked for board members to have a robust discussion related to that. And as I stated, we've shared a timeline with both building principals and also union representation around what things need to be in place so that prior to leaving for winter break, which begins December 18th, 2020, people will have a general idea of what our thinking is. And of course, the board will make a determination as to, you know, the plans that we have in place, what direction we'll be moving towards prior to that, the beginning of the second semester.
Okay, so people will, parents and community will know then before Christmas what our decision is to, as to what's going to happen in the third quarter, or not necessarily?
Yes and no. And so, so what we are doing is we'll provide a guideline of what we're thinking so that people will have an idea of what the plans are. And here's where the challenge is, Mrs. Lewis, is that as you know, that with this particular pandemic, it changes day to day. And so to say on December 18th that we'll know where we're going to be on January 4th, could be misleading because a lot of things may change. And so what our goal is to outline what our plans are so that people have an idea of how a decision will be made. And then when we have that discussion with the board during our work session next week, that's the opportunity to kind of say, okay, this is plan A, plan B, plan C. And then what we'll ask the board to do is kind of reaffirm that, yes, they're very comfortable with that direction so that we are able to share with our families as we get closer to January 4th. We'll know, depending on the conditions of where we are in the city as well as the county, does that align with returning safely to a hybrid model? Did that answer your question, or?
Yes, I'll just wait until our work session and then I'll have lots of questions.
Okay, lovely.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
One question I do have, Dr. Roby, about I guess flexibility in our communication, understanding that things definitely, like you say, change from day to day. But I know communication wise, maybe we should have a communication A and communication B sort of semi-drafted, depending on always available, you know, because I think last time there was some critique community wise as far as well, I actually heard someone use the words flip-flop on what we were going to do with the hybrid versus not. And I'm not saying I share that phraseology, but just in conversation with them, it did come up someone, and I think even Ms. Shaki, you may have recommended before about having communication plans more in place in both sides of the equation of sorts. Yeah.
And we are sensitive to that, Mr. Ross. Thank you for saying that. We are very sensitive to that. And so here will be the push. And so as we are kind of having this discussion, the board will have to kind of decide, okay, if the conditions, and I'll use the metrics that we've kind of been tossing around as far as a draft, that if we meet X number of the metrics, we'll go with plan A or we'll go with plan B. Or plan C, even if that's the case. But yes, we will have all viable plans kind of up, ready to go, depending on what's taking place as we walk closer to that January 4th timeline. And the pushback that I will give to all board members and even our larger community to kind of consider is that making a decision in January 4th is kind of just a marker in time at this point. Making that decision now, or even as we close out the 2020 year, things may change. And so we want to make sure that people have an idea of this is how the process will work. And these are the things that we will consider as we get closer to that time frame. Because as you know, people are leaving for holiday breaks and maybe logging off and not checking back in. And so we'll ask our community to make sure that they check back in at the very top of 2021. So either December 31st or January 1 to say, okay, here's where we are on this particular date. And based on that information, here will be the recommendations of what we're doing that we've already previously have communicated to the board and our principals and our teachers and families, so that there's not a surprise, so to speak. But understanding that none of us really know what's going to happen between now and that time frame. I think it's more important to provide a guideline of how that decision will be made and then what the options are based on what's taking place as we get closer to that time frame.
And I'm gonna jump in here to share that during the work session, we will dive into this much deeper. But I do I think Mr. Ross was saying that we would have communication for either things set up and drafted. And that is a
Absolutely.
conversation that I've had with Dr. Roby, and Mr. Himholtz's communication team is working on that, and we will talk about that more. So I do want to clarify, Mr. Ross, that we agree with you and that work is being done. So not necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he was talking about pre-making a decision, but having communication drafted for either or.
You're a
And
great
yes.
You are a great listener, Ms. Grant. Thank you very much. That's absolutely.
Thank you. And so
No,
I
so
apologize for
I just
giving
wanted to
more information.
confirm
Yes. Yes, I
that
apologize. Yes,
we
have
will
it
be
in.
doing that. Mhm.
Yes.
And we will dive into the whole complete process, as well as that dashboard of metrics that we have all talked about. We will dive into all of that in the work session for sure. So don't think that we're giving you a full synopsis here, because that's not the case. This is an overview of overview for us so that we can vote to continue the return to learn plan, but we will do a deep dive in what does the return to hybrid or some type of normalcy look like in the work session.
Absolutely. Are we gonna have dinner? Yep.
Sure. Are there any other questions on that?
And
Okay.
I hope that in that that deep dive that we will have some health professionals there to help us look at case issues and situations and recommendations that our health department as well as CDC, APA have in regards to those kinds of issues, correct?
Reverend Matias will likely have our district nurse, Kim Behrens, there. But as far as having someone, the other names that you mentioned, or the other groups that you mentioned, I don't know that we'll be able to access like CDC representatives, but possibly someone from Kent County. But I know that Nurse Behrens has been in close contact with our health department. So she can be present for that discussion as well.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move us to our action items. And the first item that we have is to reconfirm the return to learn plan. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the return to learn plan?
Or
Support.
Mrs. Lewis, can you please take the roll for that?
Ms. Lewis, yes. Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
yes.
Ms. Shaki,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores is absent. President Grant,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. And next we have the purchasing agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the purchasing agenda?
Support.
Okay, Mrs. Lewis?
Ms. Lewis, yes. Reverend Matias,
Yes. Oops. Yep.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Shaki,
Yes.
Williams, Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. I see you. Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores is absent. President Grant,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. And then we have the consent agenda grouping. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent agenda grouping?
Support.
Mrs. Lewis, I'm sorry.
Roll call. Okay. Ms. Lewis, yes. Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Shaki,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores is absent, President Grant.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next, we have public comment for agenda and non-agenda items. And pull this up. We do have public comment this evening. All right. I am, Craig, just, let's see. Okay, I'm going to call names, but it doesn't look like we have anyone logged in under these names, but I will still call just in case they're under a different name. Sharon Kelly. You can raise your hand if you're in the meeting under another name. So we have Sharon Kelly. We also have Nancy Haynes. And then there's also Bodie Bickford. All right, you can raise your hand or you can comment in the chat if you are here. Otherwise, we will, okay, I feel like that was enough time for if someone was here. So we will move to superintendent's comments.
So I have to say, as a newbie to the community, this is month 4 for me. I have to just thank our community for their unwavering support of our students and staff. I'm constantly in awe of just how the community has demonstrated support for our district in what has been a very trying time. And you saw it with the work that the community has done through some of the philanthropists and organizations that support the district. But I know that there are many people, in addition to those who have supported financially, who have supported in other ways. And so that's not lost on me. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of our students and our staff and our broader community. Just a reminder for everyone, Mrs. Lewis did say this, but I just want to reiterate that there's no school tomorrow for students, but it is a professional development day for our staff. As you know, this is a general election day, both for the national and local elections that are taking place. And we want to encourage everyone to get out and vote so that their voices are heard. And with that, I will conclude my comments.
Thank you. Next, we have board comments, and I will start with who I see, Mrs. Lewis.
Yes, I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to continue to say this because I see this every day with my granddaughters because I have become their teacher along with their aunts. And I see how hard these teachers are working. And I am so proud of these people because I know how much professional development they had to have to learn how to do everything. And they're so good with the kids. And even though my girls are missing their friends, I think they're learning, and I know they are appreciative of their teachers, as am I and their parents as well. So thank you, teachers.
Thank you, Mrs. Shockey.
Well said, Mrs. Lewis. No further comment.
Mrs. Davis.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of mirror what Mrs. Lewis said, and I have 3 kiddos that are in virtual learning with GRPS right now. And we just had a couple weeks ago parent-teacher conferences, and I was just thoroughly impressed with how the teachers reached out. And we were able to meet with each teacher in different ways. One of them even turned into a FaceTime phone call because that's what worked that night. So I'm just super impressed with teachers and just the staff in general, secretaries as well. I've had secretaries drop things off on my porch for my kiddos.
Mhm.
So everybody's just going above and beyond, and we're really getting to know the staff as human beings and not just as their role. And I guess that's a blessing in disguise that this situation has presented us with. My kids are really getting to know the human aspect of their teachers, and that's wonderful. And the teachers are also just helping my kids realize that it's okay that there's some anxiety, and it's okay if you don't get on right away, or if you have to go help your sibling get on online, or just navigating the map testing. Everything has just been a challenge, and we're just so blessed to have these adults in our kids' lives. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. And next we have Dr. Baker.
Yeah, I'm glad that everybody's just showing their appreciation for the staff, GRPS, and when I have conversation with folks, it just seems people are exhausted, but hanging in there and doing their work. So I really appreciate it. And I want to say good luck to my colleagues that are on the ballot tomorrow. I know it's been a grueling campaign.
Grueling.
I want to thank you for the sacrifice.
Yes.
Shown. You had to knock on that one door.
That's
And,
right.
so anyway.
We had our picture taken. We were all ready to do this, the big campaign, the four of us, but hey, who needs it if we can just roll into it, right, Christian?
Right. So you guys are all set. So we got a good board. So that's all. I'll just end with that. So we don't get in trouble.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Baker. Next, we have Reverend Matias.
Wow. Yeah. I know, I'm in the trenches with a lot of the teachers and parents, and the tremendous stress that our communities are going under. And so appreciate a lot of the social workers, teachers, parents, administrators, others in our community who are filling in the gap, our partners that are trying to figure out how to help our students and families. Truly appreciate all of that kind of work under these very unique times. And boy, yeah, good luck to you all in your incumbencies. And definitely we need to vote, and our vote needs to count. So appreciate all the work that we all do and that you all do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mrs. Williams.
I would also like to just thank our staff and teachers for the work that they are doing. We are with you in spirit, although we can't do the heavy lift with you. We are there supporting you, as well as I would just ask anyone that is a believer to pray for our community as these COVID numbers are going up, and then we will ultimately be impacted by that, whether it's by our students or our staff or our family. So so if you're a believer, I will ask for you to pray in that regard. And I will ask anyone that is over 18 and is registered to vote to make it out tomorrow and exercise their civic right to do so. And then lastly, I'll congratulate the board members early on their re-election.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Ross.
Comment. Oh, other than thank you for appreciating our hard work, team Shaki, Grant, and the incomparable Catherine Lewis. Thank you for appreciating that effort. It was great strategy. I appreciate your support, and yes, looking forward to continue serving with you.
Thank you. All right. That concludes our board comment. I don't have any comments tonight other than just to say thank you all so much for your commitment, and of course, all of our staff, from administration to teachers. We know what a crazy time this has all been, and to see everyone coming together while still dealing with what this means for your own family, your own home, but then also pulling together to make things work for our kids is really tremendous. And I personally just want to say thank you. Congratulations to my colleagues as well for uh, I think I said this before, if God gave one sliver of grace during this time, it was that we did not have to run a full campaign, because we really just needed to focus on what was best for kids. And so we haven't necessarily had a break. We've still been working. I think personally it would have been impossible to do both. So I'm thankful for that. We make sure I'm following this correctly. We are now going to go into closed session. And so Mrs. Lewis is going to read us into close in just a moment. And so everyone knows how this will go. We will go into closed session, and then we will come out of close, rejoin the live Zoom. If anyone is still on, you can join us again when we come out of close, but it will just be to adjourn. We will literally just say meeting adjourn after that. But in closed session, it will just be staff and board members. And so we will ask that attendees, once Mrs. Lewis reads us into closed, if you can dismiss yourselves, that would be appreciated. And we will join you again in a bit. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, we will need a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of considering the legal opinion of counsel to the board, which opinion is exempted from disclosure under Section 13 of the Freedom of Information Act. The closed session is called pursuant to the Open Meetings Act of 1976, Section A, Article 8. So we need a motion to go into close, and a second, Ms. Grant.
So moved.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, I'll take roll. Ms. Lewis, yes. Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Shockey,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores is absent. President Grant.
Yes.
Okay, we are now in closed session.
We will just take.
Okay, we're live.
All right, and should we wait a moment to see if people, would they know to rejoin us, or?
They won't be able to unless they're watching the live stream, in which case they are with us now.
Okay, perfect. Well, that concludes our agenda for this evening. So meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.